Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
For the SAUNA podcast. I think the first ever in existence.
Thanks for inviting me.
So this is going to be fun. I've never done this before. It's a first of a first. So Josh, you are a doctor and you're also very physique active.
You're very kind, yeah.
Thank you. So can you maybe tell me a bit more like who you are and then...
So yeah, you're right. I work primarily as a doctor, so as a clinical doctor. So I see patients most of the day in the hospital, and then I also see patients as an outpatient as well. But then I love research, which is what I always talk to you about.
Yeah, I like it.
all the good stuff. And then, like you said, I like to spend a lot of time playing sports, exercise, being healthy, diet, keeping control of myself and looking after my body as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought we could talk a bit more about sort of like the combination of what you do for your work and with all your study you do, and then with the sports, because I'm super interested in sport myself and the conversations we usually have about just sports in general.
Sport, philosophy.
And if saunas are any beneficial for recovery at all.
Yeah, I like saunas. I think saunas are good. So I guess from my point of view, obviously I've studied for a while.
Yeah.
Just clinical medicine and stuff. Did all my exams and I worked for eight years now. Feels like a long time. But now I just do neurology, isn't it? So I've done all my general exams in Australia, and because I'm from the UK originally, and now I just do neurology. But I obviously take a keen interest into all of medicine, like in health and fitness.
So with neurology, can you tell me a bit more about it before what is it for someone that doesn't know at all what it is? So
basically it's medicine of the brain. And as we all know, the brain's the most complex, instrument in the body.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of varying type of different patients. So it'd be people who have abnormal behavior, and then some people who have like weakness of their arms or legs. I'll review all of those. And then also like people who have strokes and things as well. That's probably a large proportion of the medicine I do as well.
What's so excited about it?
I think the most exciting thing is that the brain is like this untapped potential. So there's a lot of stuff we know, but there's even more stuff we probably don't know. And so that leaves a big play in what we can do for the future, what research we can do to discover more about it. So it's really interesting that way. And that's what a lot of the stuff I do at the moment is why I'm so busy. It's just trying to do a lot of this research and get the studies underway. And studies are so tough as well because, it takes a lot of your time, and often you don't even know if it's going to be useful, if the outcomes are going to be correct, and if your data is going to be publishable. So you can put a lot of time and effort into it and you might not get a lot of reward.
What are the things that it hangs on? Like what
so the things I'm currently doing, there's lots of different avenues. Obviously the clinical medicine is my main bit, so I focus on that, and then the research stuff is in my spare time. But the interesting stuff I'm doing right now, probably the more interesting stuff, is trying to bridge that gap, like the kind of intersection between like information technology and then also with neurology as well. So I'm doing a study currently trying to improve the diagnosis of some movement disorders. I won't say exactly what it is because I haven't published it yet. But it's basically like using cameras to diagnose Parkinson's disease, that kind of stuff.
Oh, awesome.
Which is kind of cool. But you have to do all the groundwork, and it's all the simple stuff first to prove it actually is, useful. And often that involves like a lot of recruitment of patients and stuff. And it can be quite difficult and very time consuming. And the other stuff is more in the works. It's stuff like using artificial intelligence systems for kind of imaging, and then using that to track different diseases and the causes of the diseases and the progress of the diseases. And then in that way, we can see exactly what the changes are and if there are any patterns and things as well. So it's kind of cool stuff,
It's very cool.
It's very cool.
I can understand it makes you excited, though.
That makes me very excited, yeah.
Especially with all the technology that's changing so quickly.
Exactly. And everything, like there's a lot of smart people out there, there's a lot of smart people, a lot smarter than I am as well. So it's like trying to use what they have found and then implement it into my own techniques and research and stuff.
How do you go about when you know that there are other people that are smarter? But then, like how do you handle it? Like, how do you your approach?
I'm fine with that because there's always, and I always say this to everyone, it's like there's always going to be someone that's smarter than you. No matter where you are, there's always some kid who's new on the block and they're just a genius. And there's loads of people with experience and stuff, and they've been doing this for years, and you should use them as mentors. You should look up to them and see what work they were doing and see what you can learn from them. So it's always good. You can always learn from someone else. And even if you're not the smartest person, you can improve on yourself. It's like you can be competitive with yourself, but not to the point where it's, negative towards yourself, or you have negative emotions towards yourself.
So would you say it's not fully about like how much information you can keep in your brain, and because that's usually what we say is smart, right? Like how quick they can.
It's true. I feel like when you're in school, like book smart is a term that gets thrown around a lot, isn't it? People who are very clever, they're like, oh, they're book smart and they do well in exams. I don't think there's probably only one part of intelligence. And I think actually the older I've gotten and the more senior you get in like work and stuff, actually the book smarts doesn't matter as much. You have to have that certain degree of knowledge and like understanding of the textbooks and things, but then it becomes experience and your like intuition, your general feel of things.
Oh, in what way would you define like being smart?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You don't ask the easy questions, do you?
That's what we do in the sauna. That's what we do.
That's one of the questions. Yeah, probably, I've not given it like a full breakdown and structural approach to the answer, but I'd say there's lots of different aspects of being smart, and we'd have to define what smart means in the first place. Like I think everyone's probably got a slightly different definition of smart. You can be smart in your workplace. You can be smart just financially. You can be smart, on the street. You can be smart in like, an athletic capability or something, exercise and stuff. So everyone's going to be slightly different. I think the best thing about like specializing or going into a certain career is that you can be good at that thing. You don't have to be the best all-rounder in everything. I think generally it's good if people have an all-round education for stuff. I think that's really helpful because you have these kind of connections between different things you do. It's nice to have people who are good at one specialized thing. And then you can ask them, questions and stuff. That's the important thing.
So would you say that even if you're not like you have that base of the all-round knowledge, but then you're specialized in something, and where the pieces you lack, you call your mentor, you call the people that your friends, and they will assist you in it.
And the other thing I think is also learning how to learn. That's very important as well. Probably arguably more important because like I think it's great that I have this good network of people I can ask stuff if I'm not sure, if they have better expertise than I do, then I'll probably ask them, questions and stuff. It is also something that's useful if you can know how to learn and know how to use the information that we get nowadays, because there's a plethora of information out there. The internet, since the dawning of the internet,
it's wild.
There's just so much stuff. Yeah. And you have to filter it. You have to know exactly what's actually useful, what's technically true or reliable. And then, you have to apply that to what you know and see if that actually like works with what you know as well.
So is that the way how you learn? Is that like
I'd say that's part of it. Like, you can't always rely on other people for everything. So sometimes you have to independently do your own like research, and that can involve like reading articles or looking at studies or like even just reading a book about something, but finding information, finding reliable sources is a key part of that.
How would you, if I wanted to get better at learning as a doctor, how would you, what type of tip would you give me to get better at learning?
That's a tough one because I think it comes down to that kind of broader education of stuff. But it is like listening to people who are specialized teachers in this kind of stuff. People who are scientists or researchers, and not necessarily just in that profession, in other places as well, who are educators, who have studied how to learn before, and then they can give that information to you. It's stuff like learning how to read a paper appropriately, because there's bias in everything. And there's little kind of nuances and ins and outs in every like study. So like there's a lot of people nowadays who are kind of influencer type, and they've jumped on this bandwagon where they understand that people are not just taking their word or opinion, as the gospel. And so, that they're coming to this phase in life where it's like, oh, we need to have someone who backs up their evidence with a bit of, evidence from somewhere.
Like, where's it from?
Yeah, exactly. Or a study or something. But then, you get the people who just kind of Google search a study and they're like, oh, this study says this, so it must be true. But actually,
like any study.
Exactly. But then you need to interpret that study and look, oh, is that study even correct? There's a lot of published stuff that isn't necessarily reliable or accurate. You know, it could have been a really poorly done study, or there could be bias. It could have been like a big pharma company who's backing the study, and they want their drug to look good, so they only publish that data. You know what I mean? So
Okay. So would you say it's very important to see where the information comes from when you look at a study or at any general information at all? So not trust one source.
Yeah.
Look at
multiple sources. Yeah. And I think it's also like it's knowing, like you said before, like the techniques and stuff to interpret that study. And sometimes you can learn that from higher education or like doing a degree. That can help you in that as well. So I understand it from that point of view. You don't have to do a degree though. You can learn how to read a study online. There's loads of like ways, probably papers on how to study as well. It's like kind of like paperception kind of thing. You know? There's like papers on papers and papers on
like
how to
learning how to read the paper by reading the paper.
You question how reliable that is as well.
That's and who wrote it?
But yeah, at a certain stage, you know, if you're reading similar things on different sites from different areas, you might think that that's probably more reliable, you know, and you're getting the same answer every time.
Compared to having like a different outcome from 4 different studies and then choosing which one you like better.
Exactly. But you know what? You can have that sometimes where it's like a really contentious subject or it's a very complex subject. And then you'll get lots of different answers for the same question. And you're wondering, why is that? And it's probably because the question is a very difficult question. It may not be like the question might be too difficult. There may not be enough information surrounding that question already, or, you know, it just might be that people are just not getting the right answer. Yeah.
Is it like the question isn't well defined enough? So the answer is just very broad or
exactly, or subjective as well.
Subjective in a different way. Okay. But I like it. I like very much. I'm looking always into studying better, especially just learning in general. Like how can I get better? And the main thing I found now is the more I recall the information, the better I retain. With your background in neurology, can you tell me a bit more what the brain does when we recall information?
Yeah, I guess everyone's very different with their kind of recall of information and memory in general. You're going to have a certain level of like natural talent for memory and learning. If you study from a young age and that's all you do, you're going to get better at it. It's like anything. It's not completely the same as a muscle, but like as a simplistic explanation, it's a bit like a muscle, you know? So it's like if you train that muscle over and over, it will get better. The key component nowadays is people trying to be more efficient with their memory, you know, retention and what kind of techniques they can use to try and improve that. So it's stuff like trying to get rid of this forgetting curve. You know, you heard of the forgetting curve? It's basically where I think there was a study a while ago, like they did different tests on students and things. And I can't remember the exact study. Here's the problem with my own memory. But, you know, you can remember stuff once you've learned it once to a certain degree. But if you check on that same information in like a month's time, you probably have forgotten it. Yeah. But if you have repeated that information at a later date, you know, so like let's say you learned it on day 1 and then you repeated that learning of information day 3, then you're more likely to remember it for a bit longer. So your forgetting curve still stays about here before dropping off and you forget it completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it just how that can be different factors, of course, then, but like the more often you repeat information, the higher the curve goes before it's slowly.
Exactly. And there's like people have found kind of a kind of optimal way of doing it. So they'll learn the information once on day 1, then they'll do like day 3, and then they'll space it out. So they'll learn it again on like day 12 or something. Okay. And then if they do it in once a month, then they'll remember it for a long time. It becomes easier to retrieve the information.
Especially when you have built it to that month point. Exactly. Because then there's already a long... And can you do it with any information? Like for
technically you can do that with any information. School, you know, reading, study. Like sometimes when I read books or just for fun, you know, like if I read a fantasy book or a fiction book or something, I'll read that book again because like I enjoyed it as well. But also I'll remember it a bit better. Yeah. So sometimes I learn or glean new information from that book, but then also I'll remember it a bit better for next time.
Yeah, because that is something I experience so often as well, as when I have read the book and I read it again and then I've learned more information. Plus the things that I've remembered.
Yeah, exactly. It's like... No, you go.
Oh, like seeing new things in the same thing, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's partly because of memory as well and also focus. I mean, like if you really think about studying in general, It's like if you read the whole textbook, how much of that textbook would you really have remembered from that one sitting? Probably not that much, isn't it? It's like easier to break it down into little portions and learn it that way. So it's the same with a reading book as well. You know, it's a bit easier to follow because it's usually a narrative, or it kind of keeps you hooked. You know, they have a way of writing in the style that makes it easier to follow. But at the same thing, if you read the whole book in one day, how much of that book are you going to actually remember?
I'm just going to keep it open a bit because otherwise it fogs up.
Oh, yeah, true.
Camera won't see it. With a big study book and you repeat it, oh, that's so nice. A little bit of fresh air. Shit.
You're enjoying that heat too much.
It is good though. Huh?
It's getting sweaty. You're right, it does fog up there, doesn't it?
It fogs, yeah.
It's so funny when you do this stuff, isn't it? It's like you learn as you go along. And then, like, we made our little setup here, which is really cool.
But then there's no airflow.
And there's no airflow. So we need to make a little hole for the airflow. Or we just let it open for a small period.
I feel like I just sweat pretty quickly.
Yeah, me too. I sweat a lot as well.
But when I sit here with my girlfriend, then I think I start sweating at 40 degrees and up till I'm dripping from my face at 55. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend doesn't sweat until 60.
Some people are just like that, you know. It's like a genetic thing.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, it's so weird. I'm the person at the gym who is like barely doing anything. I'm already sweating buckets.
I feel like it's like our sweat glands are just very trained. They're like pushing out all the water.
Get rid of it all. The problem though is when you get rid of all the salt and then you need to replenish it.
That's true. That's the negative of
sweating too much.
But the thing is, I really think I didn't sweat this much before I started jiu-jitsu.
Oh, interesting.
Because jiu-jitsu was for me the first time that I really my body needed to cool down quick.
Yeah.
And then I started
dripping,
creating oceans.
You know, it's a good way to beat your opponent though. You just sweat all over them.
You get so slippery.
It goes in their eyes and you can't see properly.
The amount of time that I escaped because I was sweaty enough to get out.
And slippery as well.
Often.
That's very good.
I would like to go back to the thing because I really enjoy learning. Okay. And
learning's good. I enjoy learning.
I know.
If you don't enjoy learning, what are you doing, you know?
Isn't it like life just one big learning thing?
Yeah, I think so.
I heard Alex Hormozy say his definition of being smart is learning from your past mistakes.
Reasonable.
And that's like one of them, right?
Yeah.
You could say. And I really like that one because if I don't learn from my past mistakes, then I feel bad compared to if I realize every time I make a mistake and then it's only 2 or 3 times that I do it again before I really learn from it.
Yeah, definitely.
Then I feel so much more
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's one of those kind of precarious areas where if you're not learning from your mistakes, then are you actually progressing as a person, you know? Because there's something that's holding you back in a way, isn't it? You know, probably you. I mean, we're all responsible for ourselves. So we're limiting ourselves a bit by not learning from those same mistakes, especially if you're making mistakes and it's detrimental to your being, isn't it? You know? Ooh. So it's not the best thing to do. I like that definition. It's nice. I do like it too, especially because if I look at how I learned in school, and especially my reading and writing, that took me such a long time. So in the sense of retaining information in school and then calling that smart, I wasn't. Yeah. In that area, I wasn't. Yeah. But it's probably because you didn't get offered the best opportunity to learn because they weren't teaching in the right way. You know, that clicked for me. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was the general way didn't work. Because that's the problem with schools in general. It's you have to teach 30 people at an average of the class. You're not looking individually at people. So it's the same in everything. It's if you individualize stuff for that person, they're going to get better results. Have you, do you have people underneath you when you work? Yeah, I have junior doctors and things as well. Do you find that you have to the same concept? You have to explain to different people in different ways? Oh, definitely. Junior doctors, and then I have students that we look after as well. Yeah. And it depends on their level of experience, isn't it? So, if there's a difficult concept, you're not going to explain that with the most difficult, areas of terminology to the student. But you might use that for the junior doctor who's, done a bit more and has a bit more experience. So I think everyone has different learning styles as well. Some people are dyslexic, so they can't read particularly well. And then obviously things like reading books is going to be a big task for them. For one person, it might take them like an hour to read a book, but if you have dyslexia, it might take you like 6 hours. So, you'd probably be tired by the first hour. I know I'm certainly tired after studying for like 45 minutes. My mind wavers and I'm like, I need to do something else.
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
have you had because I read this book on ADHD. I've never been like diagnosed or anything, but I was the most like energized kid.
Yeah.
So it's better good that it wasn't. But I found this book while I was reading. It was about like learning and the correlation between upping your heart rate before you start learning, and that created better focus.
I don't know. Actually, I've not heard of that one, but there's lots of different techniques that I probably haven't heard of.
Yeah.
So I always think about individualizing it for you. If something works particularly well for you, and then you go and study for like 2 hours and you had great focus, that's amazing. Then keep doing that thing.
So you don't have to call it a fact. You can just say this works for me, and then
absolutely,
be good with that.
Absolutely. There are certain things that will generally improve your work and study and things. So like having good sleep. Like if you have good sleep, you're going to have better focus throughout the day and you're not going to be tired or fatigued and things. So there's general stuff that's going to be better for you.
For the human,
Things like, turning your phone off or putting it on airplane mode when you're studying. That's just like common sense, isn't it? It's like, then you're not going to be distracted by your phone pinging every 5 seconds. Exactly. And you maintain your focus. Yeah. One thing that works for me, because I'm very distractible. I'll procrastinate as well. I'll go on a deep dive into like the history of like ancient Greece and the Romans for no reason when I'm like meant to be writing a paper. And I'll be like, I really need to know about the aqueduct systems for no reason.
I need to know how they constructed this.
How they work.
How?
For absolutely no reason, or I'll get like suckered into some like poetry and just start reading that and then be like, oh, this is really nice actually. I should tell my mum about this.
And then you have told all your friends.
Exactly, which is great because like I have this all-rounded kind of education, but then I didn't do the task I was meant to do. So for me, what works like pretty well is by using a timer.
Okay.
So I put a timer on for an hour and I just focus on the task for an hour. And as soon as that timer ends, then I can have like a small break and I put another timer on again for an hour.
Like how long a break do you take? Is it
5 minutes, 15? If I finish the task, then I can have a break for however long I want.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. But for me, it's like sometimes I will procrastinate because I know, I don't know, somewhere inside me, I know I can do the job in maybe a short amount of time. So if I don't give myself that kind of allotted period of time, I'll just mess around until I have to do it later on.
Because you can actually do it quick.
That's right.
That's why if you have like 6 hours, you're gonna fuck around.
I've done it before. I've got precedence. I've managed to get it in last minute and still get a good grade. So it's like if I can do that, then I can just I have the capabilities to
do it quickly.
Exactly.
So let's get the pressure up a little bit.
That's it. Yeah. Get the cooker on. I'm like, perform well under pressure.
That's weird though, that sometimes people just perform better under pressure, even when they like put off a task longer. Yeah. You know what that is?
I think some people they must have grown up that way, under pressure. But you definitely like build it from experience and stuff. If you are in high pressure situations all the time, which often in the hospital is, then you definitely get better at performing under high pressure situations. I think it's the same as anything. If you're an actor and you're like performing in front of a group of people and don't break don't change the light. If you're performing in a group of people, in a theater or something, for me, I think that would be really pressurizing. But because they practice it day in, day out, it's just normal for them.
I felt it, I think, with my last few competitions, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because then, that feeling, you feel the adrenaline.
Yeah.
I reckon.
And you felt confident as well.
And not really, because without the confidence, you get the adrenaline, sort of, because you're a bit on edge. But I feel like I'm more focused when I have that sort of...
Because of the practice? Because you've been putting in the hours and stuff?
That also, but just that feeling. Like, if I wouldn't have that feeling, I probably feel a bit like, I'm overconfident. And I hear Mark Aurelius in my head say, like, you're just a man.
Yeah. I think with sports like, fighting or jiu-jitsu and stuff, I don't think it's ever good to go into the battle thinking like being too overconfident. I think you definitely have to like believe in yourself to a degree so that you don't falter.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you can be like, oh, this guy's really strong or something, I'm not going to win this. No, you can't be like that. You have to have that certain attitude about you. It's like, I'm going to destroy everyone here. you know. But at the same time, you can't be too overconfident thinking that I'm just going to steamroll everyone, you know, because I'm the best or something. I think there's a fine line there, isn't there, you know, between what do you kind of do in your head?
I think I know what I've done because I know the training I've done. I know my own capabilities. I don't know who the other person is. I don't know what he has done. So that part I'm on edge on because I don't know what opponent I'm facing. So I just create them as most powerful as I can in my head.
I think that's a good idea.
And then I just very confident in like the ability they have and that I know who I've submitted before. And
that's probably the most respectful thing you can do to a fighter as well. It's like, think of them as like the pinnacle of their, you know, fighting form, and then treat them, you know, with danger and then
exactly.
You know, then you can destroy them.
Yeah, try. Definitely try. I mean, if you don't know, it's better to like overestimate them that they're really strong than underestimate.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
there's been a lot of fights over the years where, you know, people have underestimated their opponent and then look very silly afterwards. You know,
don't want to look silly.
You don't want to look silly, and you'll get hurt as well. You know.
True. Yeah.
I saw you choke out some of those guys. They did not look like they're having fun. You know?
I was looking at another fight there at the last comp, and there was this guy, and the other person had his leg, and he was like, "Oh, nothing, I don't feel it." Not even 5 seconds later, the medic was sitting next to him, looking at his leg because his leg was all fucked.
Oh my god!
It's like being overconfident.
Exactly.
It's just that one switch, and then something fucks up. So always have that edge.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of it as well is like knowing your limits as well, in a way. You know, like you can be confident, but then knowing that your body does have some limits.
Oh yeah.
You know, because like, for example, I'm getting older now as well. not that old, but
poor guy.
I'm getting older. What am I? I'm 30. I'm 30 years old. I'm not that old. I feel young. It's fine. But I am definitely not 25 anymore, you know. So sometimes when I'm exercising, or I'll go for a long time, but then I need to hold myself back a bit, you know. I need to be a little bit cautious that if I jump up playing basketball and fall on some water and slip a bit, that I could really hurt myself. Yeah. I'm not going to bounce back as quick as I did when I was 25.
And that's just basic common sense, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I don't think it's like a particular limiting belief. I think in a way it's probably helping me go forward so I can stay healthy for longer.
I think so too.
I'd be a bit cautious, but then it's like still push yourself when you can. It's just about like learning how to like listen to your body and appropriately push when you can. And rest when you can as well.
Oh, so important, the rest. But my friend gave me the same advice because I'm a big believer. I know that if you want to run a marathon, you can do it without training. You can just do it. Our bodies are capable of it, especially if you keep the heart rate the same, you can do it. Yeah. But my friend said it to me because I did a few marathons without training. And she said, like, Tom, if you still want to do this in 30 years or 20 years from now, train a bit more.
Yeah, you have to train.
Because
you definitely have to train.
It's not for now. Like, now you can do it. It's for 20 years from now that your body still works.
You know, the sad thing is that it's so sad as well, because I definitely agree with what you're saying about most people should be able to run a marathon or like walk a marathon. There are some people who probably are not that fit. I mean, like you've got the unfair advantage because you probably exercise for a long time, Tom. But there are some people who don't do any exercise, you know, or they do the wrong kind of exercise and they're more that kind of big gym bro style. And then they're not going to be the best at like long distance running.
Oh, the timer. You can up the timer. It's 5 minutes.
Should we just turn it off?
Yeah, but then the lights go off.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. We'll just check it on. Is that it?
Oh. Yeah,
an hour. We're in here for 10 hours. It's fine. Lose all our sweat. I was saying that there are some people probably who should be a bit careful about the marathon because we see them in hospital and there's always a few who like collapse because they may have had some underlying heart problem or maybe they didn't do enough training for it, or they thought, you know, they could just run a marathon and then they come in and they have a big cardiac arrest and stuff. So.
But with running a marathon, I'm not saying that you have to run it. I say run, walk. Everyone can finish a marathon, but keep your heart rate not higher than 165. Like I don't go higher than 165, like not even 160. Like if I go above that, I feel like I'm getting tired now. Like I can run faster now with a lower heart rate, but before that, I think if you just keep that heart rate down, because if you're gonna peak it every time, I think those people that end up in the hospital,
part of it, yeah.
they probably peak way too high.
You're on the day as well. It's like a big event. There's loads of people around you. You're trying to push yourself a bit because you want to show people that you're not like a slow person, even though you haven't exercised for a year. But yeah, unfortunately, some of them get really sick. I've seen it a few times as well.
I think we have to be careful with it, especially if I say something like this. Yeah. So if you want to do a marathon, just do it, but keep your heart rate under 170.
train for it.
Train a little bit.
Definitely train for it. Yeah. You can do it.
A doctor says
I would train for it.
I just do it.
Yeah, I mean everyone's entitled to their own belief system for sure. Yeah. I think if you. In my head as well, part of it's like the psychology of doing a marathon, because I feel like a lot of people just jump on the bandwagon when they get to a certain age. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm 25 to 35 now. I think I should just run a marathon and swim kilometers. I'm going to take up the bicycle, having never exercised in my entire life, which is good. I think it's great.
It good.
But at the same time, it's like, why are you doing that in the first place? Is it something, do you need to cycle for 6 hours in a day? Is that something that's very important to your life, in psychology?
We talked about it earlier, about the effects of things happening to your body. Like it usually is smaller pieces over a long period of time. It's not about doing mega things for just 1 week and then not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
If it's food or exercise or anything.
Yeah, definitely. Right? Definitely. I think it's always a contentious subject as well. Again, it's like, because the more exercise you do in general, just as a generalized statement, then the more healthy you're going to be, isn't it? But if you're doing 6 hours of running a day, and that's going to just be doing one thing, one would question, is there something else going on? Do you need to run that much? Unless it's super enjoyable to you, and fair enough then, or you make it into your career and you're a runner, and then you probably do need to run that much.
True.
To the regular person who just picks up marathon running when they're kind of 25 to 35.
True.
I wonder if there's a part of it that's just very following kind of social media, and
everyone needs to be
the big trends, isn't it? And it's probably a better trend than some of the unhealthy ones.
That is true.
But at the same time, you could probably have a healthy relationship with exercise and do an hour a day, or complete a task in a day, or work out 5 times a week or something, and not have to go to that extent. I know you ran the 100-kilometer race before, and to me that's kind of not unfathomable, because I think I could do it if I wanted to, but I think for me it's why would I do that? I don't in myself, I don't need to do that. That's all.
Yeah, we talked about that. We had this conversation, but the thing is, what I haven't really said, I say, I haven't trained that much, but last year I started, my first run was only 4 kilometers. Mm-hmm. And then the next day I did 5. Mm-hmm. And then the day after I did 6. Mm-hmm. And then the next week I did a short one of 6 again. And then the longer one was 8 and then 6 again. Mm-hmm. And then that week after, every time I just added 2 more until I got to a point where I was around 20. And then you're already in a shape that it's just the pain that is new for you. At 30, it's different pain. At 40, it's different pain. At 80 kilometers, it's a whole different pain again. I mean, it's more of the same after a while, but
yeah.
And I think that's the thing, even with my jiu-jitsu, I started with 3 times a week and then 5 times a week. And I built that up to 10 times a week, but I didn't start with 10 times a week.
Yeah.
It was a gradual
progressive overload kind of thing.
Exactly.
Progressive training. But I think that's the way you do training, isn't it? It's you start small and then manageable portions, and you just kind of increase over time. It's not you fire yourself into the marathon without doing any training. Well, obviously, some people can. But I think, that doing that is more a feat of the mind than it is actually benefiting you in the long run.
Exactly.
So I think, fair play, if you want to go run a marathon just to prove that you're mentally strong, then that's probably useful, to you. Yeah. But if you want to train to get stronger and fitter and be healthier, then you got to do it over time,
I agree.
And you got to stick with it, stay disciplined, and then that will build good personal goals and personal kind of values and things, and build your healthy body.
Especially, I want to add on that. For me, I want to build discipline, and I realized after having run 6 marathons that running a marathon doesn't build your discipline. That's the present after the good training. But the training is where the discipline comes. Because if you would run every morning, but it rains, it's oh shit. It's something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's where you build discipline.
That's right. That's
And then when you're trained well and you show up at the marathon, it's just, the marathon should be easy at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Because the hard part is done.
You did all the hard work, and then this is just like
It's
the cherry on top.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you can enjoy that moment. Because the first marathon or the first 20K I did was in Japan. Wasn't enjoyable. Wasn't no present. No present.
I don't know if I'd ever enjoy a 20K.
There was no training, just running. And that's when I realized, if you want to do a marathon, train a little bit. Just make it a bit easier for yourself.
Yeah. I do get that kind of, that runner's high, when you kind of pushing yourself a bit. Like when we ran that 8K the other day, I felt pretty good after that. It was like, felt quite elated. And then our big run up the hill as well. That's like the worst thing ever.
There's where you get the
But that's good afterwards, you feel accomplished, But I think that's because I've kind of trained myself to believe in accomplishment as like something that's quite high up in my life. Yeah. So it's like getting over that hill, literal hill was very impressive. And afterwards I felt good about it because I know it would be good for my body. But for me, it's like, I think there is a saturation point where if I'm running like 30 kilometers a day, I think that would probably break me down a bit too much.
Yeah.
I think it depends what you want from your life as well. If you want to be a runner, then you've got to run, so
right.
That's to keep doing that. If that's what makes you happy and you want to run, then just be a runner. That's fine.
But if it doesn't fit in your, like, let's say your basketball or your volleyball,
why extra
do it?
Yeah. Why would I? Yeah, exactly. Because I like more sports and stuff. I think sports are the best. And I think it's like that neural connection as well between, you have to think about like what you're doing with your hands and feet and everything, the proprioception as well. And it's like footwork and technique. It's not just like going to the gym and lifting weights or going for a run where you just move your feet in the same kind of pattern for like a long time. So I feel there's just a bit more to it. And it's like more active using your mind and using your body. So that's why I like sports the best.
Very much perfecting that movement you need for like basketball or volleyball or even footwork.
Definitely.
I really enjoy that too. Same with jiu-jitsu. It's you have to do the reps in the brain and the reps in the body and everything. You have to do that with repetition, exactly know what the movement is.
I've never like particularly done jiu-jitsu, but I've seen it a few times. And you'd have to think like 4 or 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead if you're really good,
Just knowing the whole sequence through. It's just from this position, I know the submission after 5 steps.
Exactly.
And that's sort of...
And then it's like carrying it out in person. It doesn't go to plan and you have to change things up.
And they switch to a different sequence.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I like about sports. And like, let's say jiu-jitsu is a sport. Is that fair?
Definitely. Yeah. Especially with the rules and stuff.
Yeah. And it's a bit different to just cycling for a long period of time where you just do the same movement over and over again. Yeah. And it's more cardio as well, the cycling and running and stuff. But for me it's quite nice to have those moments where you're thinking about what you're doing next and you're a bit more cerebral about stuff. So I like sports, but that's why I'm not running 20Ks. It's just an excuse really, isn't it? It's just I'll probably after this reconsider my life and be like, maybe I should run marathons.
I mean, if it fits, like you can wait till 35. It's like 35. Now it's my time.
35.
It's like begin midlife,
Maybe it just hasn't hit me yet. I think probably just one of those people. It's like a bit late.
And it's like
a bit late to the game for everything.
It's time now. It's time. Or it's
35.
Like Ironman.
Why haven't I run a marathon yet?
This was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Josh. It was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was a sweaty session. This is like jiu-jitsu, but then just sitting.
We did, yeah.
Like,
you just want to get me all to yourself.
Get us.
You just want to choke me out.
Oh, you get so sweaty. But I like it. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions for Dr. Josh, put them in the comments. And if you'd like to see more of these type of interviews, then join the Sandman community. Normally I upload once a week or a video about anything that I learn, or it's an interview. So if you want to see more, then I'll see you in the next video. That's good.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.